The House Appropriations Committee will mark up a $706 billion Pentagon spending bill starting next Tuesday. To most analysts, there weren't big surprises in the bill the Defense Subcommittee voted out. Roman Schweizer's managing director and Aerospace and Defense policy analyst at Cowen's Washington Research Group. Roman, thanks very much for coming on. I mentioned before we went on the air that your analyses, your comments are always very thoughtful, and I refer especially to those that you made last week on this hack-D markup and vote-out bill. You write about some of the programs that the subcommittee voted out. I'm going to start with the Ground-Based Strategic Deterrent. $2.5 billion there, Roman. You see this, you write, as a very good outcome. Why so?
Sure. Well, Francis, thank you very much for inviting me on. It's great to see you. Look, we are in the sort of budget silly season, right? All the committees going through their marks, particularly related to the GBSD program. It's the Next Gen Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. It has been sort of a target of the anti-nuke crowd, and certainly some progressive lawmakers would like to see it either delayed or even canceled. And so I think it's a very positive sign that the committee supported the administration's full request, which actually supports $1 billion ramp in the program. So the administration is doing a nuclear posture review, which will probably report out next year. I think it's probably a good signal that, ultimately that program is going to move forward.
I apologize profusely, Roman, because I went nerd right up front when you have some important analyses at the beginning of this work. You write under the bottom line up front, don't panic now about the top line. Individual program decision, however, can be insightful. How so?
Great. Hey, that's all right. I love to go right to the budget nerd factor as well. I mean, look, we are, this is an interesting time because legislatively, there's a lot of money in play on the Hill right now. And I think one of the sort of subtleties that no one wants to talk about is we don't really know what the defense number is going to be at the end of the year. The administration proposed 753. That's the all-in 050 number. 715 is the 051 number. And then, as you mentioned, the Appropriations Committee handles everything but the MILCON piece of it. And look, there's a very fine line. Progressive liberal Democrats want to cut defense 10%. Republicans want to increase it 3 to 5%. There are razor-thin majorities in both chambers. And I think a lot of red state Democrats, moderate Democrats, to include a number of senators, to include a number of House lawmakers, can't, want to vote more for defense. So I think we're into some interesting few weeks to even maybe late into the year as to how the full appropriation cycle sorts out.
The cynic in me, Roman, scribbles down, one group cut 10%, another group raised 5%. Sounds like that's a flat deal right in the middle, doesn't it?
So it would, but I'm going to throw another wrinkle into that, is that non-defense spending programs are up 16% year over year. Defense is up 1.6%. There's also, so the cynic in you should be wary of maybe that decimal point, right? And maybe the 16 and 1.6 symmetry. But, this is the Biden administration sort of giving a nod to the progressive elements of the party that say non-defense had been underfunded. Back in the glory days of the Budget Control Act, which we all know and well, know and love so much, defense and non-defense were linked dollar for dollar, right? $1 up for defense meant $1 up for non-defense. And so, we'll have to see what that ratio is at the end of the day. But I suspect non-defense is not going to be up 16%, and I suspect defense will be up more than 1.6%.
I know the BCA. I take your love it comment about the BCA as sarcasm, Roman. Back to the nerd list that I wrote here. Funding the second set of 5 Chinooks, long lead funding for the third set of 5 Chinooks. That jumped out at me because it speaks to the continuation of the Army's Big Six. Is that a fair read on my part?
Well, I think what we're into is the parts of the budget that Congress doesn't like, right? And so it's so one, it's platform retirements, whether those are ships or aircraft, tankers, Navy ships, things like that. And then it's also the cuts in procurement. And really, you're talking about balancing the legacy platforms, right, which is a dirty word, but those are jobs in districts. And then you're talking about the shift to newer aircraft programs. So you're right. I mean, that's a kind of a throwback to some of the older Army programs, the Chinook. And then if you look at a program like Future Vertical Lift, is a direction the Army wants to go. And you have to kind of, you're always going to have that the creative tension between the older program that's perhaps sunsetting and the newer program that's either ramping up or in its teething stages or something like that.
That's one of your long-term, long-view insights at the beginning of this. You write, older programs, fighters, transports, helicopters got needed increases. That's not necessarily good news inside the department, is it?
Well, no, I mean, look, this is what the House appropriators did with their mark, and we'll see how much that continues in the full committee, is they took money from research and development and they swung it into procurement, right? And, whether that's an additional destroyer or whatever. And I think, DOD, knows that a little bit. There are the sort of games that, sometimes get played and, as you know, the unfunded priorities lists are out and things like that, targets to add back. So there's always going to be sort of a give and take in terms of priorities. But, you have to understand that, the Secretary Austin, all the uniformed service chiefs go up and, you try to build a budget that is the best balance of resources and requirements. And, you're trying, I think this budget is certainly a push forward to try and develop and field those sort of newer capabilities that support the national defense, the new 2018 National Defense Strategy.
Roman Schweizer, always terrific insight. Thanks for sharing it today.
Thank you, Francis.